with over 500 brake horsepower from its 5-litre supercharged V8, a price of just over £65,000, and a subtle helping of styling aggression, Jaguar's Xfr has all the right ingredients to gain entry to the super saloon elite. This revised version adds sharper looks and extra high-tech to a tempting high-performance package. If you make an executive saloon in this day and age, you've also to make a fire-breathing version. So we have M5 BMWs, E63 AMG Mercedes and S6 Audis. Less because they sell in any significant numbers, and more because of the statement that they make, building their brands. Such cars are all about the engines that they carry, offering supercar speed in a sensible saloon. But perhaps, just perhaps, they should be about more than that. Perhaps instead of simply creating a thug in a Savile Row suit, there's room for a more thoughtful set of engineers to create something that, though still ballistically fast, is a little more subtle, a little more day-to-day usable, a little more like this. Jaguar's Xfr. Launched in 2009, this was the British approach to creating the world's fastest four-door. It didn't need to join the Germans in their ever-spiralling horsepower race, nor would it have need of gaudy badgework or showy skirts and spoilers. Here we were promised to as a car that would have no need to prove itself, either on paper or in the driveway. It wouldn't even have to trumpet its intentions with an over-firm ride or a noisy engine burble on a trip round the block. Xfr motoring was a sophisticated and very desirable take on how to produce an executive super saloon, and it shocked the German opposition enough to make them raise their game. Since this car was first introduced, we've seen all new versions of the BMW M5 and the Audi S6, and an all-new 5.5-litre engine for this car's other great rival, the Mercedes E63 AMG. All enough to make necessary the introduction of this revised Xfr, first announced in 2011. Let's check it out. Settle into the soft grain leather seats, and there's little to warn of the fireworks to come. Until you take a closer look, the cabin seems pretty much the same as that of any other well-specified XF. The starter button pulsing heartbeat red, just like your Fleet Manager's turbo diesel model. Punch it though, and things begin to change. Now, though the rotary gear selector knob's rise from the transmission tunnel is familiar, the sound that accompanies it is anything but uniquely XFR. True, firing this V8 into life won't startle small animals and children as it would in, say, an AMG Mercedes, but it leaves you in no doubt that you're about to experience something very special indeed. Now, 503 brake horsepower may not be quite as much as you get in a rival BMW M5 or Mercedes E63 AMG, but it's still the kind of power that Formula One cars boasted as recently as the 70s. Trickle this Jaguar through the traffic though, and you're rarely reminded of the fact, unlike you would be in an uber-powerful German competitor. This Jaguar's refinement masks its quite astonishing firepower, and that's a refinement that's been improved thanks to extra sound deadening material and restyled, more aerodynamic wing mirrors. It all means that the direct injection 5-litre supercharged V8 can go about its business in a way that masks its quite astonishing potency. And it is astonishing. There's 625 Newton meters of torque, which can be developed from as low as 2,500 RPM. Now forget the fact that this delivers a rest to 60 time of just 4.7 seconds. More important is the news that the commoner 50 to 70 mile an hour overtaking increment is demolished in less than 2 seconds, whether or not you choose to use the steering wheel paddle shifters that can operate the 6-speed automatic gearbox. Top speed is limited to 155 miles an hour, but if you remove the nanny-ish speed limiter, then you'd be edging closer to the 190 mile an hour mark. Now, power of course, is nothing without responsibility. So there are springs that are 30% stiffer, yet still somehow manage to deliver such a supple ride with fluid body control that some German rivals, by contrast, seem rather crude. In the same way, there's a sharper steering rack fitted to this model that still somehow manages to deliver a feelsome helm without following every contour in the tarmac. Better still, instead of one of those rather crude, selectable soft or hard damping systems, there's a continuously variable suspension setup which delivers exactly what it promises on the tin, automatically tweaking the suspension to suit the mood that you're in and the road that you're on. And if you want to stay in red mist mode, then pressing this dynamic button can automatically keep the suspension firm and the gear changes quick, while also allowing the supercharged engine to sing more lustily as the exhaust silencers are bypassed. Brilliant. But the best bit, the trick electronic rear differential, is probably what'll be responsible for your most lasting memories of this car, should you be fortunate enough to enjoy one over an empty roaded cross-country dash. Now, it's a differential that'll give you extra traction, extra grip in all kinds of conditions, on all kinds of surfaces. But you notice it most the first time you throw this XFR into a corner. That's when the system can instantly divert torque to the outside rear wheel to stop the tail beginning to slide. Now, of course, if you want the tail to slide and you're going to enjoy some opposite lock Top Gear style antics, then you can turn the whole setup off and have some fun. But in normal day-to-day motoring with this system in place, the car feels completely planted. You feel completely in control, supremely confident of this Jaguar's abilities. I'd been sold on the merits of four-wheel drive before I tried this XFR. Now I'm not quite so sure. Now, with dynamic improvements kept to a minimum in this facelifted XFR, aesthetics are where the main changes have taken place. So, as with other variants in the revised XF range, the front wings and the bonnet have been restyled to give more of a family resemblance to the larger XJ model. These slimmer bifunction xenon headlamps create a meaner, more focused look to the front end and feature LED daytime running lights arranged in what Jaguar calls a J-blade shape. There's a smarter, more upright, mesh-trimmed grille too that sits above three larger air intakes that are now darker rather than chrome trimmed and a match to a more prominent chin spoiler. I love the detail touches too. The bonnet, for example, which features a more prominent power bulge and features these lovely twin louvered air intakes that have the same supercharged lettering you'll find on the huge 20-inch Nevis alloy wheels. Then there's these vertical vents behind the front wheels, now topped with a chromed strip bearing the Jaguar name. Subtle side sill extensions are as before, but at the back there are smarter LED tail lights above a reshaped bumper and a potent set of exhaust pipes. Inside, the changes are a little more subtle but equally welcome. You sit in grippier sports seats embroidered with the R logo that position you nicely behind the restyled smarter steering wheel, and you operate buttons finished in soft touch plastic rather than faux aluminium, which makes them easier to locate in bright sunlight. And you're informed by colour rather than black and white graphics on the information display between two dials that feature subtle red needles. Most of the other information you'll need, as before, is marshalled by a colour 7-inch touchscreen that's also been updated with smarter software and graphics to make it quicker and easier to use. Getting into the back, as with any XF, you've to negotiate this coupe-style sloping roofline. Once inside though, only the tallest passengers will really suffer when it comes to headroom. This prominent centre transmission tunnel, though, will make it difficult to carry three adults for any great distance, but two will be very comfortable here indeed, with copious standards of shoulder and leg and knee room. There'll be plenty of space for their luggage too. The 500-litre boot is one of the biggest in the class. And you can extend it further to 923 litres by folding forward this split folding seat back. To understand this supercharged car's pricing, you first have to understand where it sits in the market. Yes, a price tag of £65,000 or so does sound expensive when you compare to potential rivals like Audi's S6 or the Lexus ISF, but then both of those cars offer around 100 brake horsepower less. Once you start comparing this Jaguar to slightly more powerful Teutonic rivals at the other end of the scale in this segment, cars like BMW's M5 and the Mercedes E63 AMG. Now both of those are up around the £75,000 mark. Well, this XFR's pricing doesn't look too bad, even though it is £12,000 more than a standard normally aspirated XF 5-litre V8. Standard equipment runs to bifunction xenon headlamps, auto wipers, rear parking sensors, cruise and climate control, leather heated and cooled seats, and a 1200 watt Bowers & Wilkins premium audio system, accessible via a 7-inch touchscreen with Bluetooth compatibility. Oh, and these gorgeous 20-inch alloy wheels, through the spokes of which you can glimpse chunky red brake calipers. Safety-wise, there's everything you would expect. Twin front, side and curtain airbags, ESP stability control, the usual electronic aids for braking and traction, tyre pressure monitoring and cornering brake control. No supercharged V8 super saloon is ever going to be an inexpensive car to run, and this XFR is certainly not for those wanting to shave a few quid off their annual motoring budget. Take insurance up at Group 47. Still, when its prodigious firepower is taken into account, this car is actually quite a creditable performer. In terms of fuel economy per horsepower, it's actually more efficient than our Toyota Prius. Now, it's true that you'll only replicate the published 22.3 miles to the gallon combined cycle fuel figure if you drive your XFR as if you're leading a funeral cortege, but it is slightly better than you'll manage in a rival Mercedes E63 AMG. Both these cars, though, lag significantly behind their BMW and Audi rivals, both in this respect and when it comes to the issue of CO2. Again, the Jaguar's 292 grams per kilometre figure is marginally better than that of the rival Mercedes, but it's way behind the 232 grams per kilometre CO2 return that you get in a comparable BMW M5. But where this Jaguar can match the best of its Teutonic rivals these days is in the area of residual value. Most industry experts reckon that it's miles ahead of the rival Mercedes E63 AMG in this respect over a typical 3-year ownership period. And that's before you've taken this XFR's far superior equipment levels into account. Suddenly, it doesn't seem quite such an expensive proposition. Does the world need a 5-litre 500 horsepower V8 supercharged Jaguar capable of nearly 200 miles an hour? Probably not, but then the automotive landscape would also be a poorer place without cars like this one. Is the Jaguar able to offer something that was missing from the very pinnacle of the executive car segment for a long time, namely an alternative to buying German? And that might count for a lot. This is a car that, more than ever in this revised guise, is beautifully made, astonishingly capable, and as real-world fast as almost anything you can buy. A car that can crush you with a tsunami of torque, yet also one that, in an instant, can switch into wafting you in the lap of luxury. It's an astonishing achievement. It's British, and we should be proud of it.